All right, so Block just reported earnings. The stock is down almost 4% as I am recording. This is before earnings call, so obviously things can get a lot more volatile during after hours. On today's episode, I want to take a closer overview on their shareholder letter and kind of just pinpoint some of the places that I found interesting or some of the information that I found interesting. I am a Block shareholder. I also do believe the fintech market is one that saw a huge expansion in 2021, in 2022, thanks to that kind of COVID boost. And it's one of those markets that I believe is being stretched out too much also on the negative side, where maybe early on it kind of got stretched up too much on the overvaluation. I think right now we're seeing much of a stretch down on the undervaluation, right? So I do believe there is numerous growth opportunities in the fintech space. Those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you bullish overall in the fintech market, or do you believe you're still very bearish on this space at the moment? Right now, market cap of 44 billion, not counting that 4% drop that we're seeing right now. But overall, let's just take a closer look at their shareholder letter. So gross profit was roughly 1.87 billion. That was up on a year-over-year basis, and also up sequentially. I do want to say a lot of these gross profits, both for Square and both for Cash App, are up on both a sequential and a year-over-year basis, and that's what you like to see. Square gross profit was 888 million, up 18% year over year. Cash App gross profit was 968 million, up 37% year over year. Again, both are up on a sequential basis. They do mention that one of the strong momentums they are seeing on their Square side is their banking products, which generated roughly $167 million in gross profit, up 24% year over year, driven by their Square Loans, Instant Transfer, and Square Debit Card. So again, we are in this kind of crazy market right now, especially in the fintech space, where there's obviously numerous headwinds with the overall macroeconomics. So to be able to see kind of these gross profits be up on the sequential and year-over-year basis, I do believe kind of gives a nice bullish tone. We can see adjusted operating income was profitable this quarter, second profitable. Second quarter sequentially, we did see kind of a decline in quarter four. I do believe that eventually we are going to start to see more of some form of steady positiveness here, but right now it's still going to be all over the place. Overall, adjusted EBITDA was up 105% year over year and was up a little bit on that quarter over quarter basis. So again, there might have been what I want to say the great thing about investing, especially when you're investing in the long term of things, I don't really care too much of what analysts or anybody else is expecting. What I want to see right off the bat is, hey, is the business improving? Is the business improving from where it was at a year ago? Is it improving from where it's at a quarter ago? What are the headwinds? What are the tailwinds in this space? And the answer is yes, right? We're seeing improvement both on a year-over-year basis and also improvements on a quarter-over-quarter basis. I do want to say things like their adjusted operating income and their overall net income numbers could be a little bit more stable to some extent, but we are seeing some form of improvements compared to a year ago. So overall, just based on these top level results, I am a happy shareholder. Obviously, I would enjoy if it obviously grew stronger, but overall, things aren't looking that bad for Square to really kind of give me any forms of fear. Let me know from you. Are you just on these top overview numbers? What are your thoughts initially on their earnings report?
Finally, I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
So next, I want to take a closer look at the individual ecosystems, right? Block has their Square ecosystem and their Cash ecosystem. I want to say for me personally, I'm more favorable of the Square ecosystem, even though I do believe that, right, the Cash App ecosystem has numerous growth opportunities and the synergies between them are pretty amazing. If I had to choose one or the other, I would be the Square ecosystem type of guy. How about you? But I want to take a closer look at some of the cool things that they mention here. They do mention that they are focused on further expanding their banking offerings to help sellers manage their cash flow. One of those ways is their Square credit card, which is currently in beta. And by using transaction level data, they can proactively offer this credit card option to selected sellers based on their business performance and processing history. So right off the bat, with the huge amount of data they have, they can obviously provide these credit cards to those who are not going to go under, right, based on the data that they have. They've also recently expanded their Square loans by offering a fixed monthly payment schedule option to serve large sellers. And while early, both their credit card and their new loan options have seen strong usage, particularly among large sellers. And I do believe this is one of the cases that we hear about Square. This is mainly for small businesses and really kind of small entrepreneur places, but we definitely see those large sellers also be a big portion of this company's kind of gross profit and some of the new solutions that they are offering as well. Overall, we can see gross payment volumes mixed by seller size are up in all categories. We continue to see those that can have that annualized GPV of over 500,000 continue to grow at a rapid pace, and I do believe that's going to continue, especially as eventually we are going to see kind of that market and the overall macroeconomics turn to the good side. Again, I do believe right now the kind of fintech space definitely has numerous headwinds affecting it. Once kind of macroeconomics kind of turn around, that's definitely a nice tailwind for this space. They are expanding globally, right? We can see that now gross profits in the market of outside the United States is roughly 16% of Square's gross profit, and it is up on a year-over-year basis. It grew 23% year-over-year, so that's exciting. They do mention a great example that in Australia, for example, in the 12 months ended in June, nearly half of Square's gross profit came from sellers that use 4 or more monetized products. So we can continue to see that, hey, even as we are expanding into international markets, those markets and have sticky businesses, and those customers are using more than one solution. Here in Australia, we can see half of the sellers are using 4 or more monetized products. Another thing that I think right now this one's pretty interesting. It's not my favorite use of generative AI, but in early 2023, obviously Square is trying to bring generative AI solutions to their platforms. They're bringing it here to Square side. In July, they launched what they call Square Team Communication, a product to allow sellers and team members to easily message each other, send important updates, and share knowledge with their team. So over here, they're kind of using just large language models to kind of reduce the time it takes to craft a well-written announcement and kind of overall save time. Obviously, pretty cool case of generative AI, and I do believe this is what's going to be the case in most companies where it's just going to be a improvement of time being used. I don't see this really being kind of a huge revenue driver for the company at the moment. But overall, interesting to see how they are innovating. I'm personally not that though. Excited about this announcement within itself or this solution because I do believe it's pretty minimal compared to what's happening right now in the generative AI space. Now, if we take a closer look at the Cash ecosystem, Cash App ecosystem, they do mention some great things. For example, in the second quarter, peer-to-peer transactions per active increased on a year-over-year basis and reached an all-time quarterly high, while peer-to-peer volume was 53 billion, up 18% year-over-year. They do mention in June, Cash App had roughly 54 million monthly transacting actives, up 15% year-over-year. So again, for a Cash App ecosystem, for these peer-to-peer wallets, this is what you want to see. You want to see an increase in kind of peer-to-peer volume, but also you also want to see an increase in overall transacting actives. So again, overall, the company continues to showcase that they are improving from where they were a year ago and from where they were a quarter ago. And as an investor, I think that's the most important thing, especially as a long-term investor. They also mentioned that, hey, look, we were able to grab a sticky business and we're able to kind of cross-sell to our other users. They do mention that they have, for example, Cash App Taxes, which allows you to kind of file your taxes digitally. And they do mention more than 1/3 of Cash App Taxes active chose to receive their refunds directly into Cash App during this tax season. And again, that's great, right? Because they tell you you're going to use it for this tax purpose, but then you're going to get that money back into your Cash App account, and then you'll be able to either buy things, sell things, peer-to-peer transfer. So overall, it's going to increase the engagement and the gross payment volume being kind of transferred throughout the Cash App ecosystem. And that's what you want to see. It kind of creates a sticky business and kind of keeps people within your platform. They do mention inflows per transacting actives were roughly $1,000, $1,134, up 8% year over year, and relatively stable, even though we are kind of seeing, again, a nice kind of headwinds from the overall macroeconomic market. I do believe that I do have a few more other things in geographies. They do mention that Square's gross payment volumes in the United States grew 10% year over year. Remember, the United States is more of a mature market for them to kind of see a double-digit growth is great, especially during the current macroeconomics. Again, when we start to kind of get into a better times, I do believe this can also be a nice tailwind. They do mention that growth in their international market was up 26% year over year. So not only are we seeing growth in the United States, but we're also seeing that growth in the international markets as well. They do kind of talk us a little bit about the verticals. They do mention that the food and drink are the biggest portion. Food and drink and retails are their two largest verticals in forms of gross payment volumes. Food and drink was up 17% year over year, and retail was up 9% year over year. So again, we continue to see that year-over-year improvements, and again, as an investor, I think that's what you want to see, right? Now, kind of looking at their forward commentary, they do mention gross profit in quarter two of 2023 grew roughly 27% on a year-over-year basis. They do mention that they are already giving us kind of the July numbers, which is going to be the first month of the next quarter, and they saw roughly a 21% gross profit growth there. Obviously, there's so much to kind of happen within the next 2 months, so that's not really the case of how the overall market is going to go for quarter three. But regardless, we are still seeing a nice double-digit, even 20% gross profit growth, which I personally believe is still pretty strong. The company did also adjust their 2023 outlook. Adjusted EBITDA is now roughly $1.5 billion versus $1.3 billion in the previous outlook. And their adjusted operating income was at a loss previously, and now they kind of expect more of a pretty much flat. They do mention a $25 million income on adjusted operating income. That's pretty much a loss, a flatness in my books, but it is a huge improvement. So there are some kind of ways that the company is improving and becoming a little bit leaner and meaner. So overall, I do want to say, even though the stock price is down roughly 4% after hours, I personally don't believe earnings were bad. And again, what I'd like to see as an investor is, hey, improvements on a quarter-over-quarter basis, improvements on a year-over-year basis. And if I don't see that, what is the real impact and what are the headwinds? Are the headwinds mainly kind of other competitors, or is it more of a macroeconomics? And I do believe right now we did see that improvement, and that's even though we are having this kind of crazy headwinds with the overall macroeconomic environment that we're seeing right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.